right, welcome back to our Simple Healthy Life podcast, where our goal is to have real, insightful conversations on topics that we find interesting. And today, we figure we do this one a little bit differently. We're going to do a couple in this series, and maybe we'll call them the Teach Me series, where I'm going to take a topic that I know quite a bit about and kind of teach Ryan a little bit about it. Not that he doesn't already know, and hopefully what he does know will round out the podcast for everybody. But it's a topic that has come up quite a bit. And when I started doing my own kind of thoughts around it, I realized that most people actually don't know about this topic. So the topic today is sympathy versus empathy. So as many people know, we spend a lot of time kind of working through emotional intelligence, especially with kids. And this concept of sympathy and empathy keeps coming up. In fact, I was talking to someone the other day, and they said, empathy and awareness are my 2 words for the year. I was like, wow, what an interesting thing to have as words for a year. Check back in 3 months. Maybe they'll be different. But so I've been asking, what's the difference between sympathy and empathy? And so I will ask you.
So, yeah, as far as I understand it, and likely a little misaligned with how you understand it, but I believe empathy is feeling for others, feeling what they feel, having compassion in that regard. And then, yeah, maybe sympathy is just purely compassion for the person without the feeling. That's how I've understood it.
Okay. All right. That's. I'll give it to you this way. Okay. Sympathy is feeling for somebody, and empathy is feeling with somebody. Okay. So there's there's been all these recent studies, right? We've been studying a lot about social media and the impact that it's having on kids specifically, but I think for adults also. There's been a large decline in empathy. Now, so let's break down sympathy first. Okay, sympathy is an example of sympathy is like you walking into work, and you got your hands full, and you drop your coffee and it spills all over you. And your friend comes up and says, "Oh man, that sucks. I'm sorry that happened to you." What that does is shows you that they're sympathetic to your challenges, right? Like, I'm really sorry that happened to you. Now, does that make you feel better? Okay. Maybe. It doesn't make you feel worse. But it's, I'm sorry that happened to you. That's showing somebody sympathy. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Empathy, you walking into work, same scenario comes up, coffee all over you, your friend comes up, and they grab a paper towel, they sit with you while you dry yourself off, and they say something like, "Man, I know how that feels. That can be a really challenging day to start your way off, and you have to clean your shirt, and I can relate to how you're feeling right now." And that is feeling with you, right? The words I'm using now are not, "I can see how you feel this way." It's, "I understand how this feels." And that's empathy. Does that help at all? Does that, because I'm going to give you a bunch of different examples.
Yes, I'm following. Yes.
Okay, following. Yeah. So what's happening now is we have been, you can go to the CVS right now and buy a sympathy card. Right? I'm sorry for your loss. Okay? What is that doing? Now, it's not intended. Just remember that this is not sympathy is intended as a positive. But what it does a lot of times is it puts this barrier. It's showing that I can feel without any vulnerability. Like, I feel really bad for you. That doesn't make me vulnerable at all. And it almost creates a separation where, like, you're in this spot I'm not in the spot. I'm looking down like a hierarchy. And a lot of times what happens is leaders, they get caught up in this, well, I'm sympathetic to my team, right? I understand that their plight. They have lives and this and that, but it's always they have this challenge. I understand their challenges, but it's them that has the challenge. And now, of course, remember, it's never negative. It's not like we intentionally say, like, we're not looking down at it like, yeah, I'm sorry that happened to you. It's always like, man, I'm really sorry that happened to you. And that can be genuine, but it's not empathy. So what we're after, what people are after when they're having these challenges is empathy, right? What you want from a friend is sometimes it can be as simple as just sitting, right? This term holding space keeps coming up, right? Like, you're having a really difficult challenge, and I come to you and I say, I understand your challenge, and I'd like to listen to the things that you would like to tell me. I'd like to be there, sitting next to you, to share in these challenges. I'll give you one more metaphor for sympathy versus empathy, and then I'll kind of turn it over to you. So in case you're not getting it yet, sympathy. Ryan's down in a well. He's looking up. I look down and I go, hey, Ryan, I'm really sad that you're in that well. Is there anything I can get for you? Maybe I lower the rope. Empathy. I climb down into the well. I sit next to you and I say, man, I understand that this well is dark. Maybe there's a way that we can get ourselves out of here. See the difference?
Yeah. It's an important distinction, right? Because I think from the victim perspective, or the person who's feeling the feelings, that's not a great place to be, and you kind of want someone to be there with you, like in the well, right? But from even using that metaphor, like, there is a cost to being empathetic. There's a cost of bringing yourself down into the well. And so, I think it's as you talk about it that way, I can understand, the value in someone feeling those emotions with you, but it certainly does something to the friend, say.
Oh, absolutely. And so it's interesting that you say the cost, right? So there is a cost. There's a cost to being empathetic to somebody, right? Number one, you have to open yourself up. You have to become vulnerable, right? Because they're going through something that is challenging, or you're not empathetic to somebody that's having a great day. Like, I had a great day too. That's awesome, Although there is something, and we'll get into these things called mirror neurons in the brain. Have you heard of these yet? Pretty interesting stuff. Yeah. So, but there is some cost here, right? And I think that's why, as a society, we have moved into this sympathy perspective, right? And as we move into more and more of our world being online and not face-to-face, it's easy to sympathize. It's difficult to empathize. And we're having less interactions with people that are actually real interaction. Like, you can scroll on your Instagram right now and you can sympathize with all of these different, people that are showing you one capsule of their life. Like, I'm thankful that my algorithm isn't showing me, but I know there's people out there, because I get them sometimes, where it's just people crying on Instagram. They're showing, whatever, this one capsule of their life. And yeah, you can show sympathy for that. But what it takes to be empathetic is actually to recognize and understand and be vulnerable enough to say, I too can understand this. And what happens is, in the brain, we actually have these things called mirror neurons. And when you are showing empathy, it's the reason that, like, it's the reason you flinch at a movie. It's the reason that, like, I'm going to use a really old dated example, but like, someone shows you like their wedding video and they're like, so happy and all these things, that you feel a sense of warmth, right? Those are actually cultivated when we work through empathy, not sympathy. Because remember, sympathy is feeling for somebody else. Empathy is actually being in the feeling with them.
Right. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. And yeah, I always found the movie example, the show example, kind of compelling, because it's like one of the only situations that we can, for all intents and purposes, watch human interaction without an expectation almost placed upon us to act in a specific way. As a result of that, you know, if you start crying right now, I can't just sit here and be like, nice. You know, like I have to, there is that social obligation to say, well, MJ, is everything all right? You know, what's going on, man? Not to say that I don't want to do that, but it is kind of interesting as a thought to say, well, you know, maybe that's why what we find compelling about movies and plays and shows and all that is that we can actually watch that without having really to be empathetic. Because and as you're talking about it more, I keep thinking of the cost of that, and you know, maybe that makes me, I don't know, maybe that makes me a bad person. But sometimes I'm thinking like, oh God, like I already got enough. I got enough emotions going around. You know, things are already challenging enough. I got this person I got to be empathetic for, this person, all these people, clients really, too. And there's certainly a cost to that. And what happens when someone is too empathetic, I guess, is the thought process that I have.
Sure. Yeah, no, that can hold you down. Right. It can, there's examples out there where you get so caught up in this empathy for others. But it's also easier to see now why, as a society, we're so good at being sympathetic, right? You just hit the nail on the head, right? If I start crying right now, and maybe you want to protect your energy, maybe you don't really, maybe you just want to do the socially acceptable thing to say, oh, geez, Mike, what's wrong? Well, I had this thing happen to me today. Well, I'm really sorry that happened to you. No vulnerability, no connection, no nothing, and an obvious attempt to make me feel better. Checks all the boxes. Nice work, right? And especially in leadership, and I kind of want to point this out, and maybe I'm going to beat a dead horse here, but we've all had people that believe themselves to be great leaders because they're sympathetic. And what that really is telling you, and it's kind of like this hierarchical response, right? I'm over here not having these things happen to me, but I'm a good enough human to recognize that that stuff does happen to people. So I will say the response, you know, I'm really sorry that that's happened to you, right? Now, they've done all these studies on like workplaces, and people that feel as though they have a empathetic leader are like 90% less likely to have burnout. Right? And imagine that. Think about that for a second. With these mirror neurons, right? We've proven that we are a species that craves connection, and this empathy allows for connection. So if you're at work and you're having this like really, you know, let's just say you're at work, you're just a normal work day, you have a job that you like or don't like, but you recognize that there are people around you that have empathy, that are connected to you, actually physically, like mentally connected to you. You're like, okay, we're all in this together. We have this same connection, and that's reducing burnout. Isn't that interesting?
It is super interesting. Yeah, because I think it is clear that they've shown this in a number of ways that when we mirror people, even physically, mentally, cognitively, verbally, that improves connection, you know, by a degree that we probably can't even really measure. So it makes perfect sense that when someone is feeling a particular way, to get down on their level or up on their level, however you want to describe it, and feel with them is a way to breed connection.
Definitely. And they actually have done tons of studies on this, especially in the sales world, right? So I was having a conversation the other day with somebody who's very high up in the insurance world. And he was basically stating that one of his other top salespeople has this, he didn't say unique, but this unique ability to mirror the vocabulary of whatever industry he's talking to. So he has to go in and talk to, you know, construction workers that, you know, we're going to generalize here, that are, you know, very often are using swear words, and you'll hear his vernacular change versus sitting down with, I'm going to make another general statement, maybe with like let's just say another group that that is very more reserved, right? And you'll hear his vernacular change. And that is just an example of how the sales world has been training themselves to practice this skill of connection, right? But on a neurological level, we have it, we crave it. Our brains have mirror neurons just fundamentally built in. And what's challenging to me is if you were to take some segments of the population and just ask them, what would you do if I fell down and hit my knee right now? They would say, geez, I'm really sorry that happened to you. And never think, what if I fell down and hit my knee? What would I want from somebody? I would want a hand up. I would want someone to sit next to me for a second and say, yeah, I've been here. We all fall down and hit our knee. It's going to be okay. But we don't coach that. We don't study it. We don't teach it. As a fun exercise for everybody, I think that'd be fun to do, is next time you're around someone that maybe you spend a lot of time with, that's having a day that is, let's just say you get to work and your friend that you work with is having a day. And we've all had them. Instead of saying, hey, you're having a day and I'm really sorry that you're having a day, don't just jump to empathy, right? Because that would be what you're expecting me to say is like, okay, be empathetic, sit down and say, okay, I'm really sorry you're having a day. I've had that day too. Let's just sit here and I'll sit with you for a couple minutes. Ask them what happened in the morning, that morning, before they got to work. Ask them to run through their morning. And just notice how many differences there are between your morning that morning and their morning that morning. And recognize that we all have that number of differences every single morning before we get to work. Like your morning this morning versus my morning this morning, right? I won't bore the audience with all the differences, right? But like, what time did you wake up?
7:30.
Okay. And what'd you have for breakfast?
Acai bowl.
Nice.
Yeah.
Any berries or anything on top?
I put blueberries. I put nuts on top, and I put pepitas.
Positive interaction, or what was the interaction like with the people that you surround yourself with this morning?
Yeah, it was good. We, hugs, kisses, that kind of stuff. I did a little meditation. Then I made my stuff, grabbed coffee, and prepared for my day.
And then you had clients?
Yep, I had one client who I was struggling a little bit, and then I just prepared for our podcast after, and then drove down here.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. So my morning, my alarm went off at 5:35 because that's the latest possible time it can go off for me to be at work by 6. I brushed my teeth and I was at work at 6.
Wow.
Clients 6, 7, 8, 9. Ran out of the gym as fast as I could. Got to Starbucks so that I could sit and have a little bit of time before we spent the time here.
Yep.
Grabbed a coffee, drove directly here, sat in my car and did like a 10-minute meditation.
Yep.
No breakfast. Corey was still asleep. No hugs and kisses. No fault of anybody's. And really very minimal MJ time.
Right.
Every single one of us is having a morning that is unique to them.
Mm-hmm.
And recognizing that we will all be bringing our mornings with us when we get where we're going is an interesting tool that you can use, because what I want people to understand now is that empathy, while it's innate and we do have mirror neurons, it's actually a skill. It's a skill that you can cultivate. So when you were talking about the energy required to be empathetic, right? You can get better at it with maybe by you can be as empathetic be even more empathetic with less energy, right? You can protect yourself during the empathy. You can be more vulnerable and less vulnerable. But it's definitely a skill that you can do. And maybe have a safe conversation with somebody. Like when you get home today, like in the middle of, dinner or whatever, be like, okay, walk me through your whole day. And I'll just want to see how different it was than my day, because that's what we want to be teaching to our kids. That's what we want to be teaching to the people around us, is we all have so many different things, and we're not looking for sympathy about them. Like, I'm not looking for sympathy when I tell you that that was my morning. Like, it wasn't actually that bad. I was fine. I had a lot of laughs with my clients, and it was good. But, that's what it was. Makes sense?
Yeah. It seems to be like, we're looking for empathy. When does it become too much? I mean, I hear about these people, like, I guess we call them like energy vampire kind of people. I think if you're like a highly empathetic person and you're around these people, like energy vampires, like, is there ever a point when, hey, like, you don't need all this empathy?
Oh, 100%. Yes, for sure. And I think that there's a distinction there where you can almost switch yourself back to sympathy, right? Like, still be understanding of somebody else's challenges, but not have to offer them the same vulnerability, not have to offer them the same level of empathy. And I think that there's definitely room in our society for both, especially if being empathetic to somebody is hurting you, then you have to be able to take a step back, right? Like, let's face it, if the well example, if I knew I couldn't get out of the well, I wouldn't climb down there with you. As much as you would like me to say I would climb down there with you, I wouldn't. And that's okay too, right? There's a time and a place for both of these scenarios that we're playing out, and the problem is most people just don't recognize that's true.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting, and of course we talk about how pretty much everything we do is a skill, and so that's such a fascinating concept to me, that our emotions are also skills too, and that is, I don't know, maybe someone would say that's a little inaccurate, I suppose, but I don't believe that to be so. I think people can practice specific emotions and specific intelligence around emotions, and I think this is exactly what that is, like being, practicing empathy and getting better at that. I guess for me, one of the things that I struggle with is sometimes I feel that I don't know if I really like too much empathy or sympathy. And I don't know if that's like, there's some block kind of thing there or whatnot, but I suppose I can think of an example. If I'm like, if I'm feeling a particular way, I'm struggling with, I don't know, maybe I just call it like depression. I'm struggling with depression, and someone comes and says, "Oh, yeah, I've been depressed. I know how that feels." I kind of would probably think, well, yeah, but I don't want to hear your depression story. Like, I don't want to hear like that. I feel like I would feel one-upped or something.
You run the risk of like making it about me.
Right.
Absolutely true. So again, back to being a skill, right? Let's just say that you are someone that has someone in your life that's depressed. Right. And maybe you do start with, hey, I want them to recognize that I can relate, right? So you start with my depression's terrible. Yours seems to be not so bad, right? But as a skill, as you practice this process of empathy, right, eventually you start to learn, like, it is general as a general rule, and there is no rule here. It's about sitting and listening and just simply being, right? One of the challenges is we're always trying to fix it.
Yeah.
Right? Like, if I fell down and hit my knee, you would help me up, right? And maybe I need you to just sit next to me while I get myself right and get myself to stand up. And a lot of times, whether it's based on time or just an overall feeling, we don't want to see our friend or our family in pain, whether it be mental or physical. What we're going to do is we're going to go over and we're going to try to fix it. But a lot of times, that's just not possible. And what we really are after is just to feel seen, to feel heard. So to practice empathy, there's a couple things that you can do. Number one, they've proven through like love and kindness meditations, right? Simply sitting and allowing yourself to remind yourself that you love yourself, right? And that you can practice kindness to yourself. That's going to generate your ability. That's going to enhance your skill to show love and kindness to others. And the second is just allow yourself to be, and allow yourself to sit with someone that is sad and upset and not try to fix it. Right? I mean, I'm not even going to dive into the recesses of my brain, but I'm going to tell you on the very surface level, it's very rare that I'm having a really bad problem and someone comes up to me and they're like, I know the answer. I fixed it.
Yeah,
right? I mean, let's face it. That's probably accurate for all of us.
Right.
But if you come over and you say, wow, okay, I understand. I've had that problem before too, but I'm going to sit here with you for 5 minutes. That is a massive, massive difference maker in people's lives.
Yeah, I think that's a hard concept for me to understand, and there likely is some whatever childhood kind of stuff, because I never had people sitting with me really ever. So then it was like, okay, well, how I approach a lot of things is very like logically. All right, well, we're feeling sad because we did this and so on and so forth. I kind of have this like natural default, like reap what you sow kind of thought. Like, well, you're feeling sad because you fell down. Well, you shouldn't have fell down. You should have practiced better. Should step on the stairs better.
Yeah, you're very sympathetic though. You're like, okay, I'm sorry that happened to you.
Right. Like, that sucks, but why were you walking up the stairs with a huge ass? Oops, no, we still can we swear? I don't know. But box, like ask for help.
I feel a little bit seen at the moment as I'm sitting here with a busted up knee.
Not using you as an example or anything, but that would be kind of like the natural thought. And I work on these things too. I'm reminded at home that sometimes that there doesn't need to be a solution. Sometimes a hug is all that is required, and that is still something that is hard for me, to conceptualize, because it's not necessarily how I have operated, right? And so, to me, I'm very like, all right, well, I'm feeling this way, and there must be a reason, and as much as I know these things to be true, we have plenty of conversations on emotional intelligence. I know that we don't need to fix that, and that's very, very clear. But I think it's still kind of like default, like baked into me in some regard. Old patterns say, well, how do I sow better? How do I sow so that I can reap the feelings a little bit better? And so it's a good reminder. It's good to talk about how we practice these things, because I think for a lot of people it just seems to be a hug will do it. Just being there, sitting next to someone will do it.
Holding space. And I can tell you what not to do. If you've been married for a very long time, do not say the words, would you like solutions or comfort? It sounds like it would work. It sounds like it'd be like, oh, that's a really great marriage tip. I don't know if it works. In fact, I don't like it when she asks me that either. So I'm just going to say, don't go with that, right? Try to disseminate whether they want solutions or comfort, and then assume it's probably just comfort, right? At least start there and work backwards maybe into solutions. I think that's something that we can all agree on, right? You see someone that's struggling, like start with comfort, right? And then allow them to offer themselves up, right? But it's tough. It really is not an easy thing to be vulnerable with others. And sympathy allows you a very social norm where you can stay guarded and still feel good about the way you handled the situation.
Yeah, you bring up vulnerability, and this is something that we've had this conversation in the past. But yeah, I think you do a great job at being vulnerable. You know, I don't know how that pans out in relationship stuff, but just in your I think your friends and family, it seems that you're very, you have this almost, I want to call it strategic because I don't think it's strategic, but you do have this kind of almost like vulnerability that is practice in some sense. And I don't know, I guess, do you do that on purpose? Do you know that? Did you consciously think, well, let me, or have you consciously done that? Or have you been like, let me practice vulnerability? Has that been something, or are you just kind of like, that's been a character trait of yours, or what's that been like?
Great question. Well, remember that I flipped my switch at some point during, when we read the Four Agreements, when I read the Four Agreements. But my switch prior to that was to articulate all my flaws. I'm an idiot. I'm so stupid. I should have done this better. I'm this, I'm that. Right? So I know them all. And I think that it's easy for me to be somewhat vulnerable with people because I know myself, if that makes any sense. I know I have a lot of things that come up for myself that are flaws, and I know I've had a lot of relatable experiences. So being vulnerable to me in that regard is, I guess, more natural, if that makes any sense. But no, I wouldn't say it's strategic. I do think that, in fact, now that we're having this discussion, and I didn't even think about myself in this scenario, I do think that I have been practicing empathy for a long time without noticing it.
Yeah, I would say so. And it's these little skills. I mean, someone could be listening, I think, to us have this conversation and say, well, that's at the bottom of my list, empathy. Like, I got all these other things to practice. Like, why practice empathy? But I think that it goes a long way. People who excel in any particular area don't seem to possess the skills that you think they might. And that's it's always been a compelling thought to me. Like, our president doesn't seem to possess the skills of a president. I mean, I think even his supporters can agree with that. But he does have some phenomenal skills, like marketing or whatever, or branding, self-branding. Like, you can't deny that he is just like genius level self-branding. And it seems like everything he seems to do, we're like, wow, what is that? Like, I don't really get that. Like, why would you do that? But he probably knows best. Why sign the STEMI checks? Like, why do those things? Well, because I think there's some quality there, like some skill. But point being is that, like, empathy can. You're talking about how empathy bridges the gap to connection in some sense, and that's such a valuable skill to have and work on.
Man, I think you hit the nail right on the head. I think that for people listening today, to wrap this up in a nice little bow, empathy bridges the gap to connection. And connection is such a powerful tool both ways. Feeling connected to somebody can really enhance your life. And I would tell the people that are listening, when the next time you get in a scenario where you can show sympathy or empathy, try empathy. Try to be a little vulnerable. Try to sit. Try not to fix it. Try to just sit and listen and understand. That's it. Don't go any further than that. And see how you feel and see what happens next.
Yeah, no, that's such great advice, and thank you for sharing and teaching. I'm gonna practice this. I'm gonna try to intentionally practice this. I know it's an area, obviously, that I think I just kind of know naturally struggle with in some regard. I think I'm very sympathetic, as you put it, but yeah, I don't necessarily know if the empathy part is as well developed as it certainly could be. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, thank you. If you've just listened to this, take a minute, do a loving kindness meditation, spend a few minutes developing your own concepts around empathy, and we'll catch you next time.